Initially I knew that I wanted to go back to grad school, so I started researching, and I ended up choosing the K-State program just for a variety of reasons. One, it was online, which made it very flexible for me to still have a full-time career, but it also provided the opportunity to come on campus and network and engage with my peers and with the faculty here as well. And also just wanted to stick with a university that had a strong reputation and especially had deep roots in agriculture.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Executive Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C. this week, there's a lot of confusion about a variety of subjects, but perhaps most importantly, there's confusion about just what we're going to see from the Department of Agriculture as they plan to release some kind of trade mitigation package for producers. And we have a bit of a blueprint to follow here. We were in this a similar situation in July and August of last year as we looked to see what exactly the department was going to do, and they ended up producing sort of a three-phase approach. The one most producers are most familiar with being the market facilitation program, giving direct payments. But Phil, it seems like we're expecting some aspect of that in the 2019 package, but it's really up in the air at this point.
Yeah, and it looks like sounds like it'll probably be the bulk of it. Now, going back in the last few days, it seems, we reported a week ago when Vice President Pence went to Minnesota and mentioned that they were going to do something. The next day, the president came out and started talking about $15 billion in food aid, which is a number that's, for anybody who's followed food aid, knows that that's just completely out of the realm of need and possibility. USDA this week has started to walk that back and say there probably still will be a component of a commodity purchases for international food aid. That would be new from what we talked about last year with this first round. But there still sounds like, from what Secretary Perdue said and undersecretaries have said, that they're also looking at doing another round of something like the market facilitation program, those payments, those direct payments to producers. Now, the department is getting a lot of advice on how those payment structure could be tweaked. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
And I think it's important to notice, not only is the department getting advice, because it's not an unfamiliar thing for folks on Capitol Hill as well as commodity groups to maybe offer a constructive criticism on commodity programs, but it seems like the department may actually be listening. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue was speaking to reporters this week, and he said that there were some issues with how perhaps the payment model was constructed, and they're looking to maybe not only just hear some of those equities, but maybe address them in this program that they've got coming out.
Right. I mean, one of the I guess were the big things was the payments last year were based on actual 2018 production. Now, they could do that again. They could do it on 2019 production, but you can imagine what that would do to planning decisions, right. Farmers' planning decisions. But they haven't really said exactly what they're going to base it on. There are some groups that are saying, no, you need to do it on historic yields, because for some producers, 2018 may not have been that good, and so they want to look back to, say, 2017 or earlier years to calculate their production. So that's the sort of advice that USDA is getting. Hopefully we'll know in the next few days some idea of the rules for this.
Mm-hmm. It's also important to note, as Undersecretary for Farm Programs Bill Northey did this week when he was speaking to members of the National Association of Farm Broadcasting, they're releasing the program at a different time of year too. Whereas last year the crop was already in the ground and folks were gearing up for harvest. Now producers are struggling to get a crop in the ground because of wet weather out in the countryside, and just a lot of folks that are could potentially be impacting planting decisions, but Mother Nature probably going to have quite a bit to say on that subject as well. So a lot of things factoring into the decision-making process at the Department of Agriculture right now.
Yeah, that big issue in the Midwest with the delay in planting corn is that there is a lot of concern that a number of producers are going to switch to soybeans, and then do they also switch to soybeans because of the possibility of more trade assistance for soybeans? This is something there's a lot of concern in the industry about this right now. and they, I think, would like to have some clarity as soon as possible, although that's not going to deal with the rain issue, especially with more rain expected next week in the Midwest.
And we're told to expect some kind of announcement from USDA in days, not weeks or months. And so we'll be sure to keep you up to date on what we're hearing on that subject. And whenever a potential program is announced, we will let you know just as soon as we possibly can at agripulse.com. But speaking of weather concerns and potential policy ramifications thereof, Capitol Hill still working to achieve some kind of disaster supplemental appropriation for disasters that happened in 2018 and early 2019 with flooding, hurricanes, wildfires, and things of that nature. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has been pretty adamant that there's going to be a vote before Memorial Day. The last week in town before Memorial Day is next week. So, Phil, do we expect a vote?
Yeah, I think we do, and that's because Congress generally waits until deadlines. When you got tough negotiations, you have to have a deadline. The deadline is Memorial Day, and voila, we've been seeing some progress this week. Reportedly, the White House is going along with more spending for Puerto Rico. Democrats are moving toward accepting some border security funding that the White House wants. And those are the big issues. There's apparently going to be a provision in here to ensure that industrial hemp can qualify for whole farm insurance starting next year. That's a priority for the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. And there also may be a provision in here we're hearing it's going to be tied to this trade assistance and making sure that the USDA can carry out the plan that they're working on and that we hope to be able to tell you our viewers about in a few days.
Mm-hmm. So something to watch for in the next week before Congress heads back to their respective districts for a week of Memorial Day recess. But don't have a ton of specifics to give you on the actual legislation right now, because I don't think the lawmakers have a ton of specifics to offer up on the legislation right now. But that's definitely something to watch into the coming week, as is the trade mitigation package that we discussed earlier. But I think that's going to do it for this week. So for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.